session will be recorded. So my name is Marshall Foster. I'm one of the 4 ESL Title III consultants here at the state, helping to host today. And we're looking forward to going through this with you. So today's session is the navigating the shifts of the ELD standards. So just in case clicked on the wrong button or something, right? So today you're going to receive an overview of the major revisions to the ELD standards using the new Crosswalk document. And you should be better prepared for the implementation of the updated standards for the 2022-2023 school year once this is over through a variety of hands-on activities that will allow you to think through potential shifts to the key aspects of North Carolina EL programs, such as lesson planning, curriculum pacing, classroom observations, and program design. All right, I would also like to introduce our 2 presenters for today. We have Kristen Mills and Lisa Sabaha. And so they're going to be your presenters for today, and I will be facilitating any kind of chat. So if you have any questions, or if there's any time that they mention something about putting something in the chat, that's the feature we're going to use, not the Q&A. That should be disabled on your end. So please use the chat. And then if they ask for comments, you are also able to unmute. And so I will now turn it over to Kristen and Lisa.
Good morning. We're so glad to have everyone here with us today, and we're excited to share with you a little bit of information about the Crosswalk document that was created by North Carolina Department of Public Instruction over the past year. And this document aligns the 2012 North Carolina English Language Development Standard Course of Study with the 2020 North Carolina ELD Standard Course of Study. So we're going to discuss the 4 primary curriculum shifts using this document. And today we're going to focus on helping ESL specialists, lead teachers, and ESL teachers. At this time, I'm going to share the presentation link in the chat. And you can also access the slides from the bit.ly link that's on there before you. We would encourage you to go ahead and open up this document. There are some links we're going to be referring to, and you'll have quick and easy access if you have this document pulled up. And we're also encouraging you to tweet about this conference using the hashtag that's at the bottom of the screen, NC ELD 2020 or 22, excuse me. So we're excited about that. And I think on the next slide, we have information about your conference notebook. So if you will find your position here and then go ahead and click open and make a copy of your conference notebook. This is also a great resource for you to use as we go through this presentation. This way you'll have access to an individual digital notebook to write notes and compile your ideas. And you can use this throughout the Growing Success for MLs conference this week. All the groups are going to be working on an artifact, so you can complete the artifact from each session. And then you can add different slides and comments or links or pictures or screenshots to your notebook. And that way you can keep track of some of the highlights from each of the presentations. There are also some annotation tools at the end of the notebook, so you can copy and paste post-it notes. You can add additional thoughts and pull out specific points that you want to remember. And another great feature of this conference notebook is that on page 6, you'll see some information about Go Open and how you can share your notes statewide throughout the year. And that way we have a collaboration that extends while we're all implementing these new standards. So the discussion will be available during the school year, and I think that's really something exciting that we all can partake in. So now I think we're going to do just some brief introductions. I'm Lisa Sibaha, and I'm currently a K-6 English as a Second Language teacher in Ashe County, North Carolina. And I'm a member of the North Carolina DPI EL support team.
And I am Kristen Mills. I am currently a 6th through 8th grade STEM teacher in Harnett County Schools. And I am also the facilitator as well as a team member for the NC DPIL support team. We are super excited to be here with y'all today. So thank you for joining us. All right. Before we get started, we just want to go over a few logistics with you. Logistics 1, please make sure that your microphone is muted. We'll give you the option to unmute during discussion activities today. Just with such a large group, background noise becomes an issue sometimes if we're all unmuted. Sometimes you may need to have your cameras off. This will help to conserve bandwidth. If you're not having an issue, then you can keep your camera on. If you notice that it's starting to lag, that would be our suggestion. And then last but not least, please, 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 we encourage you to actively participate in all of our discussion activities and breakout rooms. We want you to gain all the knowledge possible and really be able to walk away saying this was a great session. As we tell our students, what you put in is what you get out. So we really want us to take our own advice today on that one, because we just hope that y'all truly enjoy and are able to go and take this and share it with everybody else. And before we get started, we are going to do a Mentimeter poll. It's just a few quick questions. If you're following along on your own slide deck, you can click that link right there and it's going to bring it up for you. If you are one of those people who is super tech savvy and has multiple devices and would like to scan the QR code, that is also an option and it will take you there as well. And then Lisa, if you're able, will you please add the link into the chat box? Mary, am I still echoing for you? Okay. I'm not echoing on my end. Do you have multiple devices? And if so, maybe cut the volume off on one of those. That might be the issue if it's picking it up, because I'm not really sure why I'm echoing. And then Rachel, for the sign-in roster, when you log in today, it records your login, and we'll talk about CEUs at the end of the session and how to get that done. All right? I think those were the only questions that I saw at the time. So on that note, we're going to get a little tech savvy. Okay, let's see. So for the first question, we wanted to know where everyone's joining us from. And there's a lot of people from a whole lot of areas. That's awesome. Like we have the whole state almost covered. Okay, we're going to give you about 30 more seconds to vote on where you're joining us from today. We almost have someone from almost every county, it looks like. There's some that we don't have anyone from those counties, but at least those regions, which is awesome. All right. So on that note, welcome. I'm excited to see that we are able to reach so many people today. This is one of the biggest benefits of us being able to do this online. So many people are able to join us. So again, I hope you enjoy. I hope you're able to go and take all of this and spread the love in your region with everything you learned today. All right. Now, our next question that we just are curious to know, how comfortable are you with using the newly released ELD Crosswalk and other ELD standard documents? Oh, I see there was someone from Puerto Rico. Hello from Puerto Rico. That's so awesome. All right, we'll give you about 30 more seconds to answer this question. All right. So right now it's looking like we have a lot right there, some brand new beginners with this document, and then some that have had training. So that's exciting. And then some who are already using them for planning and instruction. Okay. So now that the voting is closed, let's just go ahead and look over this. A good bit of you have reviewed these documents. These documents are really great, and we will be getting really in depth with the Crosswalk document today. And if you're joining the other sessions throughout the week, you'll be able to learn a lot more about these other documents. I'm really excited to see that people have already had some training on the documents. That means that y'all are our experts. So when we're in those breakout rooms, when we're doing the discussion, we really want you to speak up. Okay, share your ideas, share your thoughts, share your knowledge with everybody else, because we're counting on you to be our experts. And for those of you who are brand new to this crosswalk, not 100% sure, what we really want you to do is ask questions. Ask as many questions as you can in those breakout rooms during the discussion, because those questions are what allows for us to see where we need more information, where we need more knowledge at, that sort of thing. And I will also say, if we do not get your question answered today, please, please, please remember, and we'll give more information about this at the end as well, to join the Q&A session this afternoon, where we'll be able to answer all the questions that are asked at that time. Hopefully we have an hour, so hopefully we'll be able to answer all of those questions. All right, so on that note, I'm going to exit from here and just go back over here and go back. All right, I am hoping that this all went as smoothly as it looks on my end. Now, our next question that we have for you, and this is one that either you can unmute and share, or you can put your thoughts in the chat box, is we want to know, what is your why? Why did you decide to join us today? We are so glad you are here, and there's so many reasons that you may be here. You might be here to learn, you might be here to encourage someone else, to network. Whatever the reason is, we want to know your why, because we hope that we can achieve this why for you, that we can meet your goals and your expectations. And if we're not able to, then we hope that you're able to share with us how we can, in the future, make sure we make those sort of things happen. So go ahead, add it into the chat box, or feel free to unmute.
So I'm here. My name is Myron Clays. I'm here to get familiar with all things WIDA. I just graduated last December and have a pretty nice overview of WIDA, but I figured if these sessions are coming online, and then I should attend, because you can never have too much information.
That's right, you can never. Congratulations on your recent graduation. I hope that you do get to learn all you want to learn. The Crosswalk document is one of those really amazing documents that it just kind of is like, oh, to me, in my opinion, all of these documents really are. Our team has worked really hard on these. So I hope you do learn everything you can learn and are able to share with everyone at your school and in your district. Some of the other things I've noticed in the chat box to learn about the standards. Susan, you're new to your position. Congratulations. I hope it is exciting and you love every bit of it. Sarah wants to learn how to use the new standards better, most definitely. again, to learn about the standards, the implementation process of ELD standards in your school. Oh, yes, because they are going to be widely used, I have a feeling, in almost every single school this year. I can see it. It's because they're going to just be that extra little thing in the toolbox that makes people go, aha, finally. To learn, yes, to learn all about these new updates, to learn about the new updates so you can better teach and support my MLs, become more familiar, to use them to plan the instruction, and to help the general ed teachers. And we do have some examples today to kind of show you how this crosswalk can be used for general ed teachers. We did try to include that, and we really do hope if you have friends after you attend today and they want to sign up for the content area teacher session, it is not too late to do that. They totally can. To better understand the changes, yes, learn and apply. Awesome. I'm just kind of skimming through all of these. Again, with implementation, make the program more effective, ready to fully implement next year. Yes. Join to refresh, network, and for a chance to learn something new. I love it. Lisa, are you seeing anything else that really sticks out to you?
No, I think there are just some great reasons that people are here. I'm so excited to share and to learn from each other.
Yes, I am too. And that's the thing. It's like Lisa said, we learn from you during this time too. We're here and we are your facilitators and we're presenting, but we're soaking in everything that you're saying as well. So thank y'all for joining us. All right. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and get started with our objectives and an overview.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to take a minute to focus on our objectives for this session and talk about the different activities that we want to cover during this 2-hour presentation. So our outline for the Crosswalk presentation includes an overview of the Crosswalk document, and we're going to compare and contrast the 2012 and the 2020 adopted standards here in North Carolina. We're also going to take a closer look at the major revisions. We're going to talk about what each revision is, why the revision impacts instruction, and how we as teachers can implement those or help others in our districts implement those revisions. We're also going to look at ways to utilize the crosswalk, and depending on your role, there may be a different emphasis that you have. We're going to look at some concrete examples of what this might look like in the classroom, and also have you think through a change or revision together with other attendees during this time. Okay, so if we can look at the next slide, let's begin by viewing a sample of the Crosswalk document. So this is a screenshot of section 1. There are 2 sections in the Crosswalk. The first section contains a side-by-side comparison of the 2012 NC English Language Development Standard Course of Study and the 2020 Standard Course of Study. On the left, you can see that we've listed a sample of the standard and matrices, and this contains the model performance indicators or MPIs that you may already be familiar with. And we also have the can-do descriptors on the left. To keep the document from getting too long or going out of control, we actually added a lot of links where you can go and look at more detailed information. And that allows us to compare a little bit more easily and succinctly between the left side and the right. Please remember, when you're working with the Crosswalk, you want to download the document so that the links become active and you can rotate the images as needed. That's very important for you to have access to all the information. Now, on the right side, you can see that we have the 2020 ELD Standard Statements, the key language uses, and the language expectations and functions for each grade level and standard. The order of the crosswalk, it begins with Standard 1, the social and instructional language, followed by Standards 2 through 5, language arts, mathematics, science, and social studies. And the purpose of this document is actually to create a smooth transition from the former ELD standards to the current standards. And so we really hope that this document can help you over the next year and for years to come. Okay, I see a question in the chat. Is there a quick link to open the crosswalk? There is in the actual document. We have some resources that you can use, and you can actually access all of the standards resources from the hub. So I'm going to drop that link. Now let's talk about the next section of the crosswalk, section 2. Here you'll find a comparison of the 2012 performance definitions and the 2020 proficiency level. And this section gives us a lot of information regarding the discourse, the sentences, and the word phrase level vocabulary that students use at different proficiency levels. It also is a great resource because it helps teachers provide our multilingual learners with different supports and accommodations. So when you're scaffolding, you really want to look at section 2 and use those resources and note the changes. Okay. I'm going to go to the next slide.
And Lisa, there's a question about, is there an option to download the slides later on? They're currently disabled, the slide deck is.
Slide deck for our slide deck or the
Correct.
crosswalk slide deck?
Well, the crosswalk slide deck, you know, the one that they would be able to access. They want to know if they can download it at some point. So we'll take a look at that and get back to you folks later on. See if we can make it.
Marshall, are they talking about when they click on that Canvas link, the instructor link?
I'm not sure. It just says the option to download the slides is disabled. Will it be available later?
I'm going to drop in the.
Although some people say they have been
Okay,
able
it's
to
the
download it.
presentation slide deck. Are you able to view the presentation? Okay, that's just us clicking a button. So after today's session, we will make sure that it's clicked to where you can make a copy. It should allow you to view, and then you should be able to make a copy from there. It might just be one extra box was not unchecked. So we can make sure that is taken care of for you today. No worries at all. We just will not be able to do that until after the session.
All right, thank you so much for letting us know about these things. We're going to continue talking about some of the shifts and changes and some of the things that remain the same with the crosswalk from 2012 in comparison to 2020. So the current focus or the big ideas, according to WIDA, from where these ELD standards were adapted, are equity, integration, collaboration, and a functional approach. And these ideas allow a successful standards-based instruction that's student-centered. So that's very important. It also supports students culturally and linguistically. and it's responsive to multilingual learners' strengths and needs. So we want to keep this in mind as we're going through the shift from the old to the new. Okay, can we go ahead and continue? Here we go, perfect. All right, so the can-do philosophy remains the same, and that includes the learners or students' assets, contributions, and potential. And the 5 ELD standard statements also remain unchanged. So as I mentioned earlier, you're going to see all 5 of these ELD standards on both the left and the right side of the Crosswalk document.
All right, thank you, Lisa. We're going to go ahead and get started discussing the different changes from the 2012 edition to the 2020 edition. There are 4 different changes that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and start us off with change 1. All right, so when you look at these, the 4 primary changes and how they impact instruction. In change 1 and the 2012 language domains, there's listening, speaking, reading, and writing. With the 2020 edition, they have added viewing and representing. All right. So with that, the reason they have done this is because as you can see, the viewing, it focuses on listening and reading, which is interpretive language. Whereas with the writing and speaking, that's the representative and that's expressive language. Both of these changes are based on all of the multimodal learning that now we have in life. Part of that probably has a lot to do with the way technology has advanced. And then if we remember those few years where everyone was online and, things are starting to get back to normal, but a lot of these tools that teachers have learned to use, we are still using for teaching purposes. So with all these new technology options, students are not only reading traditional text, they're viewing videos, infographics, graphs, diagrams, graphic novels, all of that. So what we're reading has changed from the just the textbook or just the novel to so many different things. Then presenting these findings under expressive modes of writing and speaking, they include all these different ways that our students are actually able to express their knowledge. Why does this change instruction? Well, it's really, really simple. It's just there's so much technology out there. And there's so much technology out there now that our students are able to show and learn everything so much differently. Like we said, the general textbook has now turned into maybe a graphic novel. There's a lot of textbooks that are written like graphic novels. It might be them being able to go and view a video and learn what they want to learn, and then they make a comic strip for their writing, and then they present their findings that way. So it's not just as simple as read the textbook and answer questions anymore. It's very much everything has changed thanks to technology. Okay, so let's talk just for a moment about change 1. And remember, really thinking about how the multimodal ways of learning and sharing has impacted instruction. And what constitutes a text, remember, is completely different now. And what writing a text looks like is completely different now. So, knowing that, reflect on what types of viewing and representing you have students do in the classroom. If you are not in the classroom, but maybe you're supporting teachers that are in the classroom, what things have they seen have you seen, that they have done with students for viewing and representing? Think about what are your areas of strength in your instruction? What are your areas that you have to focus on more in your instruction? So I'm going to mute. Feel free just to take a moment and think, and then you can enter any thoughts into the chat box or unmute. We encourage a discussion here, but I want to give you about 2 minutes just to kind of reflect. So it's 9:30, so at about 9:32, I'll just unmute and I'll say, all right, well, let's just do a brain dump, and we can type in the chat box and we can unmute and just kind of share out everything that we've got going on in our brains. All right, I'm already seeing a lot of great things in the chat. Viewing and representing changes, the move from traditional resources to more digital application, Google Classroom and Google Docs. That Google in itself allowing the fact that we can use this for free, and I pray it's always free because of the collaboration technique. Amazing resource that we now have that we didn't have this before. I know Google's been around for a while now. But just think back to even when we were in school, how there was no Google Docs for us to collaborate on a document to write an awesome newspaper or something. So these technology resources are amazing. They really allow you to apply how you would do it in the real world these days. Chatterpix, etc. I love that. Creatively using viewing options and engaging students in research and being digital citizens through project-based learning. Padlet, I love Padlet. However, I wish I could have more free Padlets than I get, but I totally love Padlet. Writing needs more focus as students write, such as text. Yes, writing's not as formal these days because it's not on standardized tests. Totally, I get that. But the great thing about writing is you can have them create a blog, something that, maybe they will find, oh, this is so awesome, and they become a blogger one day, or even a vlog if they're not into writing, but they love making videos, podcast, any of those things are great tools for expressive language. And they can use the academic writing. And we're going to show you some examples in just a little bit how that works. Another, yes, Padlet's a great resource. Viewing videos to discuss L topics to build that background knowledge. The fact that we have YouTube and we can show them so many things to help build that background knowledge where it's limited is amazing. It opens up a whole new world for them to be able to see it visually. Interactive sites for learning. Flipgrid, I love Flipgrid. It's a great resource. Use of visual representations to express understanding. The strategy allows students to use illustrations to show understanding, and it's you discover artists when you allow them to use illustrations and their drawing. A lot of times you're just like, I didn't even know this student could draw like this, and they are so into it because they want to show you. It's a great. Seesaw, even my daughter still uses Seesaw and she loves it. And she loves making little videos on it when she has reached a new reading level. So yes, Seesaw is a great resource, especially for our younger learners. Interactive platforms with older students, Jamboards, Padlets, most definitely. Students create their own infographics. Ooh, I love that. And Canva's so cool. And Canva, I'm not sure which version of it is, but it allows you to collaborate on it. I think if you go through the education links and get it for free that way, you can still have your students but collaborate, but they have to use their student emails, that sort of thing. Yes, with the key details, versus details. STEAM activities, most definitely. Media is more integrated into their daily lessons. Building background activities, yes, all day long. Flipgrid, creating anchor charts. Here's someone who has already started almost like a PDP goal. Think about this as you're sitting here thinking about growing for next year. You could use this with your PDP. Focus more on the expressive. Students can do this through various technology tools like Flipgrid, Padlet, Pear Deck. My kids loved Pear Deck when we used it, and then our district switched to Nearpod, and they really like Nearpod too. So I can say for both of those, students really enjoy them. Utilize our ELA adopted curriculum to have students reflect and respond on text, utilizing research through trusted sites to collaborate with peers through Google Platform to create multimedia presentations. I love it. And really learning how to do good research. That right there is a gold mine for students. Once they realize how to research, how to make sure the information is valid, how to learn how to cite it, all of that, it opens a whole new world for them. All right, a strength in instruction is using technology to provide visuals to go along with instruction to help students remember and use association with words and pictures to pick up new vocabulary and language. I love it. Oral presentation, graphic organizers, student created slides, Canva, foldables. That is great too. And with the foldables, that's something they're doing with their hands per se. It doesn't even have to be technology. I know a lot of the resources we're giving out right now are technology, digital resources, but there's sometimes we can still use the technology aspect to do the research, but actually create something that is not per se technology based. Making viewing more interactive to engage students. Yes. A lot of times students will shut down if you open those textbooks up. It's just an automatic response. I know that I did it as a kid growing up. Oh, we're getting to read out of the textbook again. Woohoo. Whereas if we make it more interactive, it's not such okay, it's the same thing over and over. So yes, most definitely there. Reading and writing are areas of strength. I would like to focus more on listening and speaking to give more confidence to our MLs. Most definitely. Those are two areas that a lot of MLs do struggle in, probably, is the listening and speaking. I've said it many times before with the listening, it takes a different type of learned comprehension when you're trying to listen, interpret what someone's saying, and understand it, and then reply to that. It's just a different type of learning. So, yeah, it takes that confidence step as well. Focus more on acting out creatively and using music, dance, drama. Oh, I love that. My good friend who's a theater arts teacher, she would be jumping up and down right now if she was here with me and heard that. Viewing videos to build background knowledge. Gosh, the list keeps going. Jamboard. A lot has changed, most definitely in the past 2 years. I think a lot of students have become more tech savvy and a lot of teachers have become more tech savvy. It's not Technology doesn't scare us to experiment and try something new like it did before. All right, I work diligently with my students on their writing skills by incorporating all the language domains of listening, reading, speaking, and writing. Provide students opportunity to share with each other what they what they have learned and take ownership of their learning. Yes, when they own their learning, they're so proud of it and they want to keep doing it. I would like to focus more on creating assessments that align with WIDA standards to prepare students for the yearly access assessment. That is another good goal. I'm just kind of skimming through these again. Lisa, is there anything that pops out to you that I haven't read out loud?
I think you're doing a great job. One thing I did, because I want to go back and look at these ideas a little more closely later, was I copied and pasted the notes from the chat into my conference notebook by adding a couple of new slide pages. And so I'm really excited about using some of these ideas when teaching this upcoming school year.
That is a great idea. And maybe, Lisa, we're able to share, like, once we get all done, if it doesn't happen today, please don't get upset with us. But when we're done, maybe we can take all of these ideas and link, like, make another document and link these ideas to the presentation so everyone has this information as well.
That would be great.
All right. I'm booklet. That's another great one. There's so many great ideas, y'all. I'm just skimming through these. So excited. Would anyone like to unmute and share anything at all?
Yes, our central office has VR headsets, like class sets, and I've taken them on, like, a lot of people have done 360 videos on YouTube to, like, go to their parents' countries, virtual field trips, and I have them talk about everything they see, anything that they notice when they're looking around, and it's like they're really there, they're wanting to talk, and it's good speaking practice. They're so excited to visit different places, and some virtual field trips are arranged for VR. I haven't looked into it extensively, but then you can just find so many through YouTube as well, as long as you preview it.
That is amazing. I love that. I want to go on a virtual field trip like that. Wow, that would be so cool. That's awesome. Would anyone else like to unmute and speak about something they're doing?
Okay, so I put in the info about the Padlet, but we kind of paired it with a literacy activity too. After we did a read aloud through in a topic about being a hero, we read "My Name is Celia Cruz," and so like I was able to not only post like infographics, videos about Celia Cruz, the history, and the mix of salsa and all that. And it's an independent activity, and the students just love being able to like put on their headphones and kind of like explore what they want to explore through it, you know, geography and the country, you know, learning about Cuba. And so I think that would be really great paired even with what the previous teacher just mentioned with the virtual um, field trip.
That would. I think that's a great like resource in general using the Padlet, and then the way that you're using it to really be able to build that background knowledge and incorporate it, and then they're still reading and writing and speaking and listening with everything. That's amazing. And then yes, I love how you've already connected another idea. Ooh, what if we do this next year? That's amazing. Oh, it makes my heart so happy to hear these great ideas. Booklet. I keep seeing booklet, and that is the one that I meant to try this year and completely forgot to. I've heard so many great things about it. Even my daughter came home from school one day. She's like, Mommy, you need to do booklet with your students. It's so much fun. I have highlighted that one to learn all about it this summer because that's what I keep hearing, that it's great. Would anyone else like to say anything?
My name is Mayor Kesaya. Um I developed a kind of like a world race that we do with the students. So we visit different countries, and in each country we learn about a person. So they have to read articles and then answer questions. They learn about the geography and the culture. We try to compare the culture of each country with the culture of their own country, and they able to belong to everywhere in the world. So we do a lot of that in games and um, culture assembly. And then they also get to do a class where they are the teachers and they present about their own culture. So they get to speak out loud in front of a class, and that helps them a lot because they are not shy. They really want to share about what their favorite celebrations are. So that opens up a very awesome thing going on, and they can share a lot about their own cultural background and their own family traditions.
I love it. Yes, and that allows them to have that ownership and to be proud at the same time because they are able to teach everyone about their culture and their traditions. So that is great. And there's so many things like that. They could even then go and take what they've taught them about and create like their own Kahoot or booklet or quizzes, and then everybody can play it. And so then you get to do a whole little, you know, just a fun activity with what all they've learned, if they were paying attention during the presentations, all of that. I love that. All right. We are going to go ahead and move on to change two. So, Lisa, I'm going to mute and let you take it over.
That sounds great. So with change two, we have a shift from the key uses of recount, explain, argue, and discuss to the key language uses that you see on the screen. And what has happened here is recount has disappeared, and it's actually been changed to narrate and inform. We still have argue and explain with the 2020 standards, and discuss is now embedded in all of the key language uses, but it's not listed as a separate genre family at this point. So we're going to talk about the shift to the key language uses and some different ways you can apply these in the classroom or help the teachers that you're working with create lessons based on the key language uses. So if we can go on to the next slide. A few years ago in October of 2020, I attended a WIDA webinar on the key language uses lesson planning, and they gave us an example topic of the water cycle. And so I took the lesson framework that they gave us and I applied it to a unit on third grade volcanoes and landforms. And you can see some of the ideas that I used here with my third grade students. And after reading about volcanoes, we then created a product in Google Slides that included each of these different key language uses. I wanted to update the key language uses in the classroom, and I thought this was a really easy transition from the 2012 to the 2020 ELD standards. And though it isn't really necessary to include all 4 of the key language uses in each unit, these examples show you how they each could be utilized during instruction. And one thing I really liked about working with all 4 is that when I aligned them to the North Carolina Essential Standards for ELA, students also had practice with writing or talking about opinion pieces, informative and explanatory text, and also different narratives. So I thought that was really helpful in supporting what they're doing in the classroom and also supporting language development. So after working with my 3rd graders, I then worked on a different unit with 5th grade, and that's on the next slide. And I always start with reading and listening as a basis to the instruction. So students were able to read text, watch videos, listen to read alouds. And 2 of the texts that we focused on were Animals of North America and Doomed to Disappear, Endangered Species during this unit. And we used the Book Creator app to showcase the 5th grade students' work and to represent their speaking and writing skills after viewing and reading the material. So what we're going to see next is an example of student work. And I'm going to address a little bit with the voice record tool. I see that question in the chat in just a minute as we go through. So this first example is student work from the key language use of Narrate. And we started with a pattern poem, and I asked the students to write a poem from the perspective of an endangered species. And the sentence frames I felt like was a really good scaffold, and it helped provide them language support for Narrate. And this particular student, she generally has a difficult time engaging in her schoolwork, yet I feel like because of the sentence frame, she felt supported enough to work on this product independently and even outside of class. And another thing that I really liked about this was it made her think beyond the concrete in her writing. This personification, I really like the last 4 lines of the poem where she gets into the mind of the kakapo and actually talks about what the animal's thinking. And I felt like she was very proud of her work, and it met the objective of narrating. Okay, so if we can move on to the next slide. The next key language use that we focused on was inform. And we took 2 different endangered animals and we compared and contrasted them. And so students would complete a thinking map, a double bubble map, which is what we use in our district, but you could also have students use a Venn diagram to compare and contrast the 2 animals. Now, Book Creator has their own audio tool where students can record their voice. I've also used, I believe it's voicerecorder.com, and had students import their voice recording into a Google slide, which is fairly easy to do. And that's something that we did with the 3rd grade product. But with this particular example, the students had an audio script that they created first, and then they recorded their voice speaking. So they had some of that speaking practice as well, and we also worked on organization. So if we can look at the next slide. In the beginning, working with compare and contrast, we start out with a very structured assignment, and this is an example of the progression I just wanted to share with you. I gave them a sheet of paper, and on one side we had these easier sentence frames. And what you see here, the compare vocabulary is in blue and the contrast vocabulary is in orange. And the students were asked to create an introduction, have 3 different, similarities, and then talk about 3 differences, and then of course add a conclusion. So I felt like this was a good way to get them started. On the back of this sheet of paper, they had a challenge compare and contrast list of sentence frames. If we can go to the next slide, please. Okay. So here you can see the vocabulary is more complex, but the format remains the same. And students could choose whichever level they wanted to complete. And oftentimes they would self-select the more challenging version, which I think is great. And I told the students they had a lot of flexibility with this. They could change the words and create their own script. And the ones, of course, who were levels 4s or 5s found that to be a lot easier. And then after doing the sentence frames, of course, we would work with checklists, and then the students would create their own individual compare and contrast writing and assignments and examples for their speech. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so this one moves to the key language use of explain. And this student was a newcomer. She was a level 1, and she wrote about North American animal habitats that we read. You can see the titles in the very center. And then she also has an introduction from sentence frames and a conclusion. And then she used transition words first, second, and third to tell about the different habitats. And she was also able to support that vocabulary with images, which is one of the things I really love about using Book Creator.
Okay. Lisa, you have a question in the chat box.
Okay.
It says, do you provide word banks, images for novice level students to create their presentations? And do you allow for them to use their L1?
Yes, they do use their L1, most certainly. And they also have word banks, and we talk about different words and some of the similarities in language 1 and English. So I try to provide a lot of support with that. L1, either myself or sometimes students in the room, of course, will help when we do partner work. And then as far as the images go, I really let her self-select those pictures because I wanted to see if she understood what she was writing about and to make sure that she could illustrate her ideas. And this student was strong enough that she didn't have any issue with that. If you had a much lower student who had less exposure or schooling in their previous country or situation, then it might be more important to provide scaffolded imagery as well. Okay, great questions. Thank you for asking.
And you have another one. Where did the students search for images?
They searched within Book Creator, and Book Creator uses Pixabay, so all the images should be free to use.
All right, and then we have another question as well that we might just want to go ahead and address, Lisa. It says, I'm curious, in the 2020 standards, why did WIDA rename the language domains listening, speaking as viewing, interpretive? I can understand interpretive, but not the viewing aspect of this. You can view reading, but how do you view listening specifically? And I honestly think so. The viewing goes with the listening and the reading, all right, and interpretive, because you are internalizing it. It's something that you are taking in yourself, learning, that sort of thing. The expressive portion of it and the representing is with the writing and the speaking. Viewing, listening, I think what they mean by that with you viewing, you might view a video, you might view a sound bite. Lisa, any other thoughts on that?
Well, I think a lot of what WIDA does is very holistic, so I would look at it holistically. And so I think those are
Questions usually we
great
explain like
ideas.
15 half of it. And he played a little bit more today on the first half.
He did. I'm satisfied.
Oh, no, these kids.
If you could mute yourself, we would appreciate it. I'm sorry.
I see another question
All right.
about how long does it take
Yes.
to create these. What I have the students do is we write first. So they have to complete, I guess, the harder work up front. And then we go in and they type it and they add their imagery. And it really doesn't take very long once they have that writing piece in place. So for them to create this entire book with the 4 key language uses, maybe we spent a week and a half, and that's with 30-minute blocks.
And then our next question is, what are students expected to do in the narrate section? Do they produce something at this point?
In the narrate section, that was the pattern poem that they produced, where we talked about the personification of the endangered animal. Does that answer the question?
I think so. And then David, to answer, yes, they're viewing by listening. The captions in a video, listening to a read aloud text, anything they're listening to is that viewing. Yes, most definitely. And Wendy, you are spot on with that. Yes, it's the input. The output would be the expressive portion of it. So anything they read or listen to, that is the viewing, what they hear and what they see. Most definitely. Great way to put that in words. I appreciate that. And yes, they're listening critically. So it's not just, all right, I'm listening to you talk. They're listening with a purpose. And then Rosemary's asking, what tool you use to create the book?
It's the Book Creator app. And one thing I really like about it that they've updated is now students can access their own books. In the past, I've had to have us all work on the same book at once, or either work, within my account. But now they can access them. It's still housed in my library, but it's more easy for them to log in individually. So I think it's a really good app to use with students.
Yes.
And it's free.
It is free. There you go. And Jessica, yes, what they envision when they view. And that's such a hard skill to teach. When we're listening, teaching students how to actually visualize what they're hearing. That is a very hard skill to teach. But once they learn how to visualize, and as they listen to something, the comprehension starts to click there too with the listening comprehension. So yes, that's also a great point. All right. Lisa, are you ready to move on to your next example?
I think so. Okay. I know that in the past, we used the terminology, instead of expressive and interpretive, we would talk about productive and receptive for those different language domains. And I think I really like students to have a product, and that's what you're seeing here. So this is another example of explain, but I wanted to show you the work by a level 4 student, so you could see the difference between a newcomer and a level 4. And conceptually, the idea of illustrating and writing about the effects of changing habitats on animals was a little bit more complex than what our animals, or what our habitats, excuse me. And another thing that I challenged the student to do in this example, it still follows the same accordion paragraph format, where you have an introduction with a complex sentence, You have a conclusion with those keywords. And you also have transition words and at least 3 reasons, but they gave examples of those 3 reasons. So instead of having 5 sentences, they've expanded to 8 sentences now. So that was the difference in the scaffolding between the level 1 and the level 4 here.
And you have a comment in the chat saying, thanks for sharing this. This is a great example to show how the content complex language functions. So yes.
All right, so if we want to go on to the next one. Okay, this is the last key language use. This is number 4, argue. And the students actually answered the question, should we help endangered animals survive and why? So in this example, the student used sentence starters such as in the text, based on the text I determined, and from my perspective. And that you'll see in the body of the text at the bottom of the first column. So they have an introduction, then they have text evidence and personal experience that they use to support their arguments. And then, of course, they have a conclusion on the right. So I think it's important for them to learn with that key language use of argue, how to draw information from both academic and their personal perspectives when they're writing. Okay. Do you want to move on to the next one? Great. Okay, this is an example that Kristen has used in her STEM class, and it's about roller coaster physics. So this is not a ESL class specifically, but she has used the language of math and the language of science. And instead of focusing on the 4 different areas, she has focused on explain and argue, which you will find in the crosswalk are the most prominent key language uses for 6th through 8th grade. I think she's got some great resources here, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about how the students used explain and argue during their work and their presentation.
Okay, so with my class, it's actually an elective at the school that I'm at. So I have a hodgepodge of students, I guess you can say. I have newcomers, I have our long-term MLs, I have, you name it, AIG students, I have EC students, I have everything in my class because that is what my class is. It's an elective and it's an option that anybody can take. And so one of the units we did this year was on roller coaster physics. And down there at the bottom, I have this first link, this little image. If you click on it, and I'm going to try to see if it shows up, this is how the students actually learned everything they needed to learn in order to build their roller coasters. And as you can see, I gave them all the different options they could read about it, they could watch videos, or they could do interactive links. So that way they had the option to learn the best way they can. Anything that you see where it says DE, that's Discovery Education. So if you do not have an account for Discovery Education, the link may not work for you. I'm not really sure about that. Our district does have that for the science and STEM math teachers, that sort of thing. So that's why I have it. But this was how they learned everything. And then what happened is as they learned, this is just another document that they used. Each team always received a handout for any type of unit that we did, and it uses the engineering design process. And of course, it started with the rubric that we would go over. So they knew what was actually expected of them. And so they had to research and answer these questions. And then after they did that, once they understood physics of a roller coaster, they had to design their roller coaster below. Then had to also label where the most potential energy was, where the most kinetic energy was. All of those things that they just learned about, they labeled on here. And then they were given a budget. I set everything up like the real world in the aspect as I come in as a CEO from a company, and their goal was to build the most thrilling roller coaster they could and stay under budget and sell me on why I should have them design their roller coaster in my amusement park. But their budget was, I think the budget I gave them was $1 million, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so much money," until they started building, because I was like, and remember, because lumber is limited, the price of lumber has really gone up. It's hard to get, so this is how much your lumber cost, and like popsicle sticks is what represented that. So they really figured out really fast that, hey, money goes quick. So it also had that aspect for them. And then they also create and test and improve. And a lot of that is just discussion, you hearing them talk about, well, hey, the gravity gets going too fast here, the marble, blah, 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 it falls off because the gravity can't hold it on, that sort of thing. So you really hear them using the academic language that way. Then when it comes down to it, they have to explain how their roller coaster was successful and how it used the physics. I was getting ready to say the word marble as well and combine the two. Physics to move the marble from the starting point to the end point. These are all resources that I had to buy myself for them to do this project. So I just use the plumbing installation tubes, the little tiny tubes that you can get at Home Depot and Lowe's, and then marbles, and then masking tape. They were allowed to use textbooks. They are allowed to use popsicle sticks. Anything that I can, affordability was always at the point, but they loved it. And then they had to, when they did their presentations, and when it was presentation day, they came in, they demonstrated how their roller coaster worked, and then they had to also argue why their roller coaster should be selected as a CEO. And I would always have teachers come in who could go and sit there and kind of model the CEO board and say, well, da 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 da. And so they kind of get used to that public speaking aspect. I have a couple of videos here just to show you. I took lots of videos, but I had to make sure that I got videos that did not have student faces in them. We're going to try to play these. I'm not sure if it works with me unmuted or if it works with me muted. So this will be the first video that we play. If it does not work great, we will make sure we get it fixed for the future. So just bear with us.
Under.
I did not show in that video, so I'm sorry. Let's try this one. All right. So basically you can see they get to sit there and practice. That is an actual one that worked. I had lots of video clips where they would want me to record to see if it would work, and then it didn't work, and like, oh man, okay, this is where we need to fix it. This is where it's fallen off the track. And so anyways, this is just one of the many units that I created for my students. No images for these slides. I've lost image. I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Lisa, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. Yes, they love this activity. They love being able to get out of their actually sounds like complete chaos during this unit, but it's truly not. Someone from central office actually walked in my room one day and they're like, we thought that, y'all were just having a massive party, but these kids are actually learning, and they truly are. Like, everybody is learning and wants to be part of this. How did I make sure everyone was learning and the same info when I differentiated the background knowledge? So what it came down to is this was a team activity, and they had those questions, but I told them what they had to do is not just one person was writing the answers on their handout. Everybody, I would use the phrase, work smarter, not harder. I said, so if you all research the same question, it's going to take you twice as long. Whereas if you go and someone researches this and you're looking and answering this question, so and so here, you're breaking it up and you're all focused on doing one part. So I would make them write down who was doing which question. Now, I had a newcomer in one of my classes this year, and so with that group, I strategically went over there and made sure that the question that she answered was a question she would be able to find the answer to. She picked out the words in videos, if that makes sense. But so everybody, they've learned this whole idea of working smarter, not harder, and that's part of working as a team, where we don't all sit there and look at the same question and wait for one person to answer it, but instead we all have a role and we have a specific assignment task that we're doing to make sure that the whole group understands what's going on. So I hope that kind of helped answer that question. I also preview all of the ways for them to learn the information they need. Like I preview how to find it and where to click and that sort of thing. And then I just post that slide. I post it as an actual live slide, so it goes automatically into full screen for them. That link in Google Classroom. We use Google Classroom in my district. And with that, then students open that link up and they have the research there. The reason that I do that, and with my 8th graders, I could probably let them go and explore more, but because they are all so excited to go and actually start building the roller coasters, I have found, and not just roller coasters, when anything we did, Rube Goldberg machines, any type of unit that we do, I have like a slide like this for them. So that they have that research tools. But I have found that because there's so many things, if they just go and type in the question online, they get overwhelmed and then they get sidetracked. And with me being an elective, the way it's set up, I only see my students every other day. So therefore, to kind of cut down on time, I provide the resources for them for research purposes so that they're able just to go in and research and learn. And then we'll play Kahoot. But this year we're going to try Booklet instead of Kahoot, or quizzes, something to review so I can really see who's learned what. We talk about it. We do a few different activities so they all kind of understand what's going on. So there's a lot of formative assessment in that aspect, observations. I'm not sure if I see any other questions. Or my units for all levels. What do you mean by all levels? What about the products? I'm not quite sure what that means. Like this, I differentiate with my students based on their needs when they're with me in their groups. They choose their teams at the beginning. I have a whole little method of how they choose their teams for the semester based on what their interests are within STEM. They kind of do a little questionnaire, and then their team has to come up with somebody who has a high interest in S, science, high interest in T, technology, a high interest in E, engineering, and then a high interest in M, mathematics. So they get all 4 there. And then I really work with them at that point once I get to know them. And if one group needs specific help, like per se differentiation or extra scaffolding, I provide it. But normally I provide all of that as an option for everyone, and who needs it uses it, and who doesn't need it doesn't use it. And then I'm reading, yes, creative writing, very competitive and based in real life. Yes, and that's very much what mine is. The writing task, what I expect out of them when they do their role play for the presentations, everything's differentiated, but everybody comes out with the same goal. The great thing is because they are working as a team, they learn what their strengths are together, and then they go ahead and they say, okay, you're really great at illustrating, so you're going to make the poster. You're really great at making an ad, so we want you to do the elevator speech. Like they figure out what their strengths are and they work together just like they would in the real world. So yes, I have the same, I see exactly what you're saying with your creative writing class as well. With the language proficiency level, so we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Again, I have all different levels in my class. So I help them how they need to be helped. I really look at the can-do descriptors and, all right, this is what they can do. Now we have the key language expectations, and we're going to talk more about those, and you're going to see examples with that, how we can really use that. They're a lot more specific with what students should be able to do. One of the ESL teachers is right across the hall. Another one of the ESL teachers, while she's in the hut, she comes in and she, talks with her students during class, and she's like, it's amazing how they're able to use this language like this, and they take it back to the classroom because everything's so hands-on and everything's just so open to talk about it, they really get vested in it. So I hope I answered your question. Yes, they present in a showcase. They're motivated because they want to. That's awesome. And that's what I want mine to be able to do too. We actually talked about being able to kind of work with another school and almost do like present to them and then present to us, because we have another school that has a very similar STEM program in our district as well. So yes, awesome. I think I answered all of the questions. So I'm going to mute and let Lisa take it back over.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Kristen. I know we spent a lot of time on this particular section because we did want to share these examples with you all, and we thank you for your input. On this next slide, I wanted to show you a couple of documents that you could use to help you with that transition to the key language uses. And on the left, you'll see information from page 221 in the WIDA ELD Standards framework from 2020. And this gives you some different examples for narrate, inform, explain, and argue, so that you'll know sort of how to adapt those or apply them in the classroom. You can also find information in the crosswalk and how the key language uses are represented in each grade level cluster. So for example, on the right-hand side, with the grade 4 and 5 cluster, you can see here that only explain and argue are listed for the language of science because they are the most prominent. And once again, that's what Kristen focused on with her lesson, were only the two that were most prominent for the 6th through 8th grade grade level in science and math. So I think that's important to keep in mind, that you do not have to do all 4. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so now it's your turn to discuss this information with some other participants. We're going to ask you to think about how to implement this change, number 2. And so in just a moment, we're going to have a short breakout room session. And I know we're running short on time. So I think we're just going to do an abbreviated version so we can get all the information in the next 40 minutes. But we want you to discuss how you can use the key language uses of narrate, inform, explain, and argue in the content areas. So which strategies do you feel are your most successful ones? So take a moment to think about that. And then we're going to take this opportunity to share ideas and learn from others. We'll meet again as a large group after about 3 minutes in the breakout room to answer these questions collectively. All right, so Marshall, are you ready to open up the breakout rooms?
Yes, you just let me know.
I think we can go ahead and do that now, please.
All righty. Everyone, there will be sessions of 5 or 6 people per each one. And if anyone's not in one, then I will move you over to a session.
I'm not in one yet. I don't know. I've never done breakout rooms in WebEx, so I don't know.
Okay.
I need to hit a
What's your
button.
name? I don't.
My name is Myron Clays.
All right, Myron. Let's see if I can. All right, I'm moving you to breakout session 27.
I'm also not in one.
Okay, what's your name?
I think I can have it under Kathy V.
All righty.
Yeah.
All right, Ken,
Hello.
I'm going to move you to session 18.
Okay.
Let's see, who else is in M1?
I'm not.
Sorry, I had my volume off.
Sure, what's your name?
I'm
Monica?
Lisa.
You said Lisa?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to move you to session 31. All right,
Please
who else?
move me too. My name is Angelica.
All right, Angelica, I'm going to move you to session 6.
I'm not in the session either.
Okay.
Name is Jason Newberg.
All right, Jason. I'm going to move you to session 39.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm not either. My name
Okay.
is Monica.
All right, Monica. Got you going to session 4.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm not in one section either. My name is Sandra.
Okay, Sandra. All right, I'll have you going to 42. All right, anybody else on? I see some different names, but I don't know if you're actually.
This is Lexi Higgins. I'm also not in one yet.
All right, Lexi. I've got you going to session 9.
Thank you.
Hi, Marshall. Karen here. I'm not in a session either.
All right. I'm going to put you in session 13.
Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Nation. I'm not sure my volume, my sound was muted.
Oh, okay. Well, I've got you going to session 25.
All right, thanks.
All right, Alyssa, Caitlin, Hilar, Kim, Martha, Misty. Looks like Shannon, Sylvia. Are any of you online right now? If so, I can move you over to a session.
This is Alyssa. I'm not in a session yet. If you don't mind moving me, please.
Sure. All right, I'm going to move you to 27.
And this is Martha. I'm not in a session either.
All right, Martha. Glad you're able to join us today. I've got you going to 34.
Thank you.
Marshall, this is Reve. Could you move me as well?
Yes. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. And maybe it's because we joined as guests. I don't know why it didn't move us. Thank you.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
This is Sylvia. I'm not in a session either.
All righty. Have you going to 41?
Kim Hedden and Tama Bilals.
All right, Kim, and have you going to 23? And Tim, I'll have you going to 23 as well.
Hello, Marshall. This is Marcita. I supposed to be in session 18, but I don't know what happened.
Is there anybody in session 18?
I don't know. I
Oh.
saw 18 and I clicked something and now I don't see anything.
Oh.
I see the main screen.
Let's see. How does your name show up on there? Is it a number, or do you have your name listed? Because it's not popping up on mine, but I might be able to search. No, see, it doesn't want to. So you want to do your no. Did you call in with a cell phone, or did you do the computer? Oh, well, maybe she got back to her session. Okay, great. All right, what about Misty K? Okay, Key. Sorry, my eyes are bad. Misty Key, are you on?
I'm here. This is Hillary, but I'm not in a session.
Okay, all right, Hillary. I will move you to session 10.
This is Misty. I'm not in a session either.
Okay, I will move you to session 29. All right, so where are the ones that said they needed help? Where was that? They pop up, but then they go away.
Hey, Marshall, Lisa just texted me and asked, can we end the breakout sessions and come back together as a whole group?
Yes, and would you like to do that now?
Yes.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, so all breakout sessions will be ending in 1 minute. All right, 10 seconds. Everyone should be joining us. All right, so everyone should be back now from your sessions. And I will turn it back over to Kristen and Lisa.
We hope everybody was able to get some great discussion in the breakout room. I know there were a few technical issues. We saw in the chat that some people did not have anyone in their group. That may have been a technical issue, most definitely. We were also adding people into sessions that had not been put into sessions. So if you did not get the full benefit of that breakout room, we're very, very sorry. Hopefully it will get smoother at each time that we get this done. Today is our very first session, so we just ask for grace in that. But we're seeing some really great things already. Kim had said that we use BMM, beginning, middle, end. Is that what you mean by that? Activities along with read alouds, drawing an illustration of specific vocabulary is very helpful.
Yes, beginning, middle,
okay.
and end.
Awesome. Okay, we're seeing that some people had a really great session. Lisa, do you want to add anything here for the breakouts? Lisa may still be getting back with us. She was in a session, so she may be coming back. Would you rather activities tend to lend themselves to explain and argue tasks? Yes. And you can also, with the would you rather, have them even line up and go like to side of the room and side of the room. And that's a great way to group them. We have a thing saying the group was really awesome, discussed how to use Book Creator, digital books. Yes, Book Creator is really, really great. As you saw from the examples that Lisa had, it's just so visual. Kids love it because it does look so professional and it does allow that creativity. Write Reader is another platform similar to Book Creator that might be something that people want to check out. All right.
And I use Write Reader usually with K2, and then I'll use Book Creator with the older students, like 3 and up. So I found that to be really helpful. And the 3rd grade unit, all of these units maybe take a couple of weeks, 30 minutes a day. So it doesn't take a huge amount of time. So thank you so much for your comments and your thoughts. Kristen, are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay.
So we wanted to give everybody just a quick break because we know sitting for 2 hours can be a little tiresome, especially with a lot of us on summer break. And it is the first, well, it's not super early in the morning, but we did have the first session of the day. We originally were going to do a 5-minute break, but we're asking if everybody, we're going to give you about 2-3 minutes top, and then we're going to come back. So we will start this timer, but we're going to move on in just a little bit, like 2-3 minutes. Just because we want to make sure that we're able to honor your time and respect that and give you all the information we can as well. So feel free, take a quick break, and we will get back 10:33 is what we'll say. 10:34. How about that? That way you have 3 full minutes.
Kristen, are we ready to start back?
Yes, let's go ahead and start back. If you're still grabbing your coffee or something with your quick break, no worries at all. Just join us as soon as you can. What we are going to do, because we still have change 3 and change 4 to discuss, and we have a little under 30 minutes left. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But what we will do is hold all questions till the end. And if we have time remaining, once we get through change 3 and 4, we will answer those questions. If not, if we're not able to answer your questions, we really do encourage you to attend the Q&A this afternoon from 3:30 to 4:30. And if you're not able to, feel free to email us your questions and we will respond to you as well. We have put our email addresses on that first slide for you. So if you're not able to attend this afternoon, but have a question you would like us to answer, don't hesitate to reach out to us. All right. So on that note, oops, no, we don't want to do that. We're going to go ahead and move on to change 3. Change 3, it shows the shift from the 2012 Model Performance Indicators, those MPIs, to the actual language expectations in 2020. All right, so this is a response from WIDA to request the retired generative MIPs. With the MIPs, if you reflect on those, we really use the can-do descriptors, and we there's a lot of gray in how we feel students would kind of show at level 1, demonstrate their knowledge, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, and so forth. And the language expectations add more specificity and concreteness to the ELD standards. So they're much more, in a sense, black and white, what is expected of students at this point, okay? And that really helps us as teachers because they're written more like the actual standards, content standards. It helps us to see what students should be able to do. Therefore, they appear more similar to the other content area standards, like I said. They provide the goals for learning content vocabulary and that academic content standard. So they really show, okay, this is what students should be able to do. All right, it provides us the opportunity to set goals for content-driven language learning. All right, they are actually derived from academic content standards, and they are intended to make it more visible the language associated with the content standard. So as we can see, the way it's set up is it gives you a grade level cluster. Like this grade level cluster example is grade 6-8. Then it gives you the key language use, which we just talked about those. This one is narrate. Then it gives you the mode of communication. We've also talked about this. This is interpretive. And then it gives us the actual language expectations. So it breaks it down for us just like this, which is really, really great because it does give us that concrete visual that a lot of us, I mean, probably all of us, I hate to say all of us because that really lumps everybody together, but this is what we've been asking for as a field, and WIDA heard us, and this is what they've provided now. So it's a really, really great tool. Okay, so this slide shows how the 2012 MPIs and the standard matrix and can-do descriptors, they appear on the left, okay? And now we can look and see how they're different from the 2020 language expectations. And it really, again, it breaks it down for us. It's more concrete. And you know, when I first talked with some content teachers about this, they're like, wow, this I can use, this I can see, and I can actually apply it in my classroom. A lot of times what I heard from my content teachers when we had the MPIs is this is a lot. This is overwhelming. I don't know how to do all of this. Now they see this in their content areas. Which slide am I on? Lisa, do you know which? This is slide 30. It hovered down there at the bottom. Since I'm in full screen, it doesn't have it on the numbers, if that makes sense. I'm sorry, Joy. But this really, really, really breaks it down for teachers, and they are able to use it and apply it in their classroom when they're writing their objectives, their content objectives, and their language objectives if they're using SciUp as well. All right, so further down in the crosswalk, you can see that the links again here appear for you. Okay, and that again is in the crosswalk document that we shared earlier today, and it specifies what pages to find these examples on. And you can see that it previously was the can-do descriptors. Now we have our key language expectations. These links, again, are there to conserve space and better show the alignment, okay? If we would have listed all of that information, it probably would have been extremely overwhelming because it is so much. And again, this really is answering those questions or the wants of the field that we're able to use our language expectations in our content areas, and it really just gives it the black and white like we needed it as, and I say we like as a content teacher. I've been a content teacher now for a few years, and when I ran upstairs, I'll never forget running upstairs saying, guys, look at what we have finally. And all my ELA friends are like, this is awesome because I can use this and I understand it, and I don't have a meltdown saying, Kristen, please, please, please tell me how to do this. So on that note, we're going to move on. Again, here's an example of an MPI. This is a teacher-created MPI. And Lisa, this was in your district, correct?
Yes, and special thanks to Kathy Evans. She was the ESL teacher who collaborated with this, working with classroom teachers.
Yes. And so thank you again for this because this is an amazing example of the MPIs and what we did. This was with a 5th grade language arts sample. The topic is vocabulary building. Okay, so it could really be applied to any content area, any grade level. As you can see, the differentiation is labeled just like the MPIs. We've color-coded it for you. The goal of this lesson is to create a student dictionary and write phrases, sentences, and or paragraphs containing vocabulary words. And what we're going to kind of look at now is this is how it would be written. Now, with the language expectations. And you can see that in bold and in italics, add precision and details to define, describe, compare, and classify the topic or entity. Okay, same exact lesson. We're just using the language expectations. Okay, this is same grade level cluster, grades 4 through 5. The ELD standard is the language for arts. Key language use is in form. Everything is bold and italicized for what it is used for. The language expectation, again, as I had already said, you are not having to meet every single language expectation within that. You're meeting the language expectation that actually the students are doing. You do not have to sit there and stress, well, how are they doing this? How are they doing this? How are they doing this? No, you're focusing on how it connects to the content area standard that you're teaching, and that is the language expectation that is being met, if that makes sense. Again, you are still going to have to scaffold for your students, obviously. The difference is the expectation here, the goal is here. So now it's, okay, what scaffolds am I putting in place so they can meet this goal? And we're going to look at a student example that goes with this. I am only going to preview slides 1 and 2 in the student example. This is a real student example, so you're going to notice some misspellings. That's because a student did this. This is all student work. Lisa is going to talk about the other slides 3 through 8, when she talks about change 4. So the goal here on this first slide was to make a Freya model, and it was all digital, to show that they understood what the word extraordinary meant. Okay, and that is what they were doing here. Then on slide 2, they are actually this is the writing sample. They're writing sentences, okay? They're using the word, they're adding the detail, the precision, and you're able to see they understand the word based on their writing. All right, and so that is the essence of how this works with the new language expectations. So again, we're going to look at an example. We're going to quickly look at this example just due to time. But basically, if we were to look at ELD Standard 1 from the 2012 Model Performance Indicators, there's a link here that if you click on the K3, it's going to bring up pages that are those Model Performance Indicators, the MPIs, from the 2012 edition for K3. And again, the 412. Because that is so many pages and so much information, we thought it would be easier just to link it there for you, just because we did not want to overwhelm anyone. However, if you then look at the 2020 language expectations, they're precise right here. Everything that we need to say, okay, this is what our students need to be able to do. These are the expectations, the goals. So what we're going to ask you to do in just a moment, and again, we're kind of going through this briefly, and I'm sorry if at any point you are lost, please let us know so we can make sure that we address that in the Q&A today. Is we're going to, in just a moment for a discussion, kind of look at this with your grade level and what activities would you be doing to meet this actual goal. So if you are grade levels K1 or 2 through 3, here are your language expectations. What activities could you do to meet that expectation? If you are grades 4 through 12, what language expectations, and they're on the right side, could you do to actually meet what activities could you do to meet this language expectation? So we're going to give you about a minute, and I know that's not a lot of time, to kind of look at that, and I will go back to that slide so it's here for you, and think about the shift from the MPIs to language expectations and compare. Think about what we used to go through with the MPIs and what you would be actually using now with the language expectations. What do you notice, and how is this going to impact instruction in your classroom or content area? If you are not currently in the classroom, what about the teachers you're working with? How is it going to impact their instruction? So I'm going to mute myself, and I will give you, well, I say I'm going to go back. Hold on. I forgot that the one button doesn't work. I'm going to give you just a moment, kind of look at this. How could you use this for instruction on this actual standard, the language for social and instructional purposes? Okay. Feel free to put in the chat box or unmute just for a quick minute. How can you use this? What do you notice about this? How might this impact instruction for you, using the language expectations versus the MPIs?
Number one, my thoughts real quick is that I'm not trying to, with the MPIs, I felt like it was kind of an artificial performance descriptor in the sense that I was trying to apply it and trying to extrapolate what the MPI said to student performance. But with these bulleted lists, I can really see what kind of language experiences I need to define, like to ask questions and solicit others' opinions, or even to ask questions, we could do a KWL chart as a class or something like that.
Yes, they are much more concrete in these expectations. And I even see someone said something about the can-do descriptors. The can-do descriptors are still a very great resource, and we encourage you to use that resource. I know Lisa talked about it at the beginning of today's session. We use that resource to kind of help determine the scaffolds that are needed in place to meet these expectations. They are, yes, I wholeheartedly agree. They're cleaner, we can see them. They really are a lot easier for content teachers to incorporate this into their lesson plans and objectives. They add those expectations. They hold our students accountable for their language learning. And the great thing about this is, yes, these are here for our MLs, but in reality, is going to benefit all students, okay? Holding all students accountable to being able to do this is going to help increase everyone's academic language. All right. Does anyone else have anything they want to say? Feel free to keep the discussion going. Rachel, I love the clarity of the language expectations. And yes, so easy to incorporate into regular EC. And actually, one of the EC teachers that I work with, when I was talking with her about these, she said to me, because, there are those students that are they're identified in both EC and as an ML as well. And it's really great because they can go and take these language expectations and use them to write the language goals for their IEP. So it's something that they are really able to use. She said, this is awesome because I really can actually use this to help these students with their language learning. At this moment, I'm going to go ahead again. Feel free if you have a great idea, put it in the chat because we're going to try to archive this chat for everybody. But I'm going to let Lisa go ahead and take it away with change 4.
Great. Thank you so much, Kristen. We understand this is a lot of information, so we would encourage you to go back later and look at these different slides. The fourth and final change that we're going to discuss today is the shift from performance definitions to proficiency level descriptors. And in the Crosswalk document, you'll see the changes and how the proficiency level descriptors are much more specific. They're adapted to the different grade level clusters instead of just ranging from K-12 in one document. And they've also reconfigured the language table to expand discourse and what that means for students who are learning English. Okay, so can we go to the next slide, please? Next, you're going to see an example of Crosswalk Section 2. There are links at the top of the Crosswalk document, so you can move automatically to this page. This particular example shows grades 2 and 3. And one thing I love about Section 2 is the transition is really quite smooth. You'll see that there's information about the shift from listening and reading to the interpretive communication mode that includes viewing. You'll also see how there's a shift in discourse in the gray section, moving from linguistic complexity only to now including organization of language. So if we can go on to the next slide, please. So this is an example of that reconfigured language table, which you can find on the link on this page. It's in page 33 of the WIDA ELD Standards framework. And what I want to point out here is if you look at discourse and the 3 criteria that are listed there, it's no longer just linguistic complexity. It now includes the organization of language, cohesion of language, and density of language. So that's another way that Section 2 expands and gives us more information and more support within this document. Okay, so if we can go on to the next slide. All right, so due to this expansion that we just discussed, there are the 3 criteria in discourse. So we've included links instead of repeating that information 3 times. So those explain what the links on the left side of the screen are for. And I just wanted to make that as a quick note. And if we can continue to the next slide, please. Okay, so here, this shows the sentence level information for students in that grade 4-5 cluster. And we're going to revisit that Freyer Model Digital Dictionary. And one thing I want to point out before we do that is you can see that the language on the right with the proficiency level descriptors is more specific. I think it's a little bit easier to follow and understand. And another thing I love is that they have examples in the parentheses. I found that very helpful when trying to apply the proficiency level descriptors to a lesson that I wanted to scaffold. Okay, so if we can go to the next slide, please. So let's talk about why this revision impacts instruction. As I just mentioned, the proficiency level descriptors can be used to scaffold during lesson planning. They are a great guide for how individual students grow over time and reach that next level of language complexity. They give us clear targets for language learning that we can use during curriculum planning for all students at all ages and all proficiency levels. And this particular slide focuses on the sentence grammatical complexity for grade 5 students with speaking, writing, and representing. So we're going to revisit that Freyer Digital Dictionary. Kristen, if you can go to slides, or start with slide 3, and we'll go through these slides very quickly. Okay, this shows you how you can differentiate for students at different levels. And so we're going to look at a level 1 student where the proficiency level descriptor showed us that students at this level can create phrases. So you could start working with adjectives and nouns in sort of a sentence patterning chart. Let's go to the next slide. Level 2 student can write simple sentences using the different parts of speech. And with this process, the ESL teachers can help classroom teachers during this differentiation. So you might want to work with small groups. If you're co-teaching, I think that would be a great way to do this. And of course, it's very sequential, so one level builds on another. So let's look at the level 3 student on the next slide. Okay, I also want you to notice that these are color-coded with the different parts of speech, so it's easier for students to understand the connections, such as the multiple nouns and verbs in a context, or excuse me, a compound sentence that you see here in the purple and the blue. Okay, let's go to the next one. This next slide shows level 5, where students are working with complex sentences. And so once again, the sentence construction is a little bit more challenging. At this level, I like having partners work together on constructing complex sentences. We might write each part of the complex sentence on an index card and have students stand in front of the class and arrange themselves in a line in the correct order. Another thing I like to do is with the subordinating conjunctions, we might focus on spelling those and maybe even have spelling practice so that they feel confident and have ownership of those words. All right, let's look at the next one, level 6. Level 6 shows expanded complex sentences where the students are adding adverbs and prepositional phrases. And the last slide, slide 8, is just for your reference as educators. This is the instruction that students were given for their Chromebook and how to use the GIF-PAL app and actually create their own GIFs for their digital Freyer dictionary. Okay, so if we can go back to the main slideshow now. And the example that you just saw is embedded within the main slideshow, so you all have access to it as well. So if we can go here, you can see each of those, or the transitions from the complexity of the sentences. And the transition from simple sentence or phrase to the compound and the complex sentence. All right, so we are not going to have time to do a breakout room, but the question we'd like for you to think about is, if you view the proficiency level descriptors for your grade level, how would they impact instruction? And we'd like for you to think about a specific lesson that you could adapt to meet the different proficiency levels of multilingual learners. If you join us this afternoon and would like to talk about that during the Q&A, that would be a great time to discuss this further. And remember, once again, the proficiency level descriptors are found on section 2 on page 103 of the Crosswalk document, and they continue till the end of that document. Also remember to use the examples in parentheses within the PLDs to guide you. All right, so Kristen, at this time, since it is 11 o'clock, I think we should wrap up. If we can share the artifact and what we would like for people to include, and then talk about next steps. Maybe we can do that just in the next few minutes for those of you who can continue with us.
Yes. Okay. So the artifact is in your journal, that your interactive journal that Lisa showed you at the beginning of today's session. And so what we're asking you to do is, when could the crosswalk make an impact? And we're actually only going to look at this first column today for us, but we wanted to make sure you had all of the information because even though you may be an ESL specialist or an ML lead teacher or just and even an ESL teacher, you're working with everyone. You're working with content area teachers. You're working with those that serve multiple roles, the multifaceted roles. You're working with everyone. So it's great just to have all of this information for you. So this could make an impact when we're doing pacing guides, lesson planning, differentiation, and when you do a PLC, parent conferences. Lisa, are you able to repost a link to the journal? Oh, you've already got it. You're a step ahead of me.
Well,
Awesome.
actually, that was to the student example. I'll get the in just a second.
Okay. LEP plans, goal setting, goal checks. Any of this is when this crosswalk can make an impact. Now, what we're asking you to do, and again, this is your artifact for today's session, is there are 3 questions in the section for today's session for us, and we're asking you to answer these 3 questions. When would you find the crosswalk most helpful in your current role? How can we implement the crosswalk with fidelity? And what will be your top 2 changes in practices? And I want to just go ahead and say the purpose of this is, one, for you to reflect to make sure that you understand everything that we learned today. And then if there's something you have a question about, please bring that question to the Q&A today. This also might be something that you turn into your district for CEUs. You will get a certificate from DPI. Her name, lady at DPI, her name is Teresa Parker, I believe is her last name. Marshall, if I'm incorrect there, please correct me. And that will be to you. I would give it a good month just because she has so many certificates to give out from this. And then you'll be able to turn that certificate into your district for your CEUs. They may also ask for this journal, this artifact as well. But that is the whole purpose of this. Lisa, do you want to take it over from here? Where do you type your answers? Wendy, there should be like boxes in your journal where you can type those answers. And I will also say that as Lisa was talking, there was some great discussion going on, some questions asked. I did take snapshots with camera snapshots of those questions so that we can make sure to answer those questions in today's Q&A. Alicia. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, I was just going to address what she had asked. You can create this conference notebook for yourself. Your district may request you to submit it to receive CEUs, but we do not need to have you submit that.
And then there is some extend your learning. This is just for you. If you would like to go in, these are great activities to use in PLCs. Again, when you are presenting to people. And then Lisa, I'm going to let you talk about these quick resources right here, additional resources.
Great. Yes, this is where we would love for you to go and utilize resources. The first link is to the Standards Resource Hub, which has all of the 2020 standards documents, not just the crosswalk, but it's something I would definitely bookmark on your computer. When we were designing the crosswalk, WIDA had a frequently asked questions series. And the second link that you see there that says Introduction to the 2020 edition is a really brief 3-page article with a chart that compares the changes. I found that to be really helpful. As the second WIDA FAQ series document with the proficiency level descriptors, there's some great information there as you continue your exploration. And then finally, please don't forget to continue to check out the professional development that's offered by the North Carolina ELD program. There's some great resources and opportunities, so please take advantage of those. And I think what we would like to remind you, the link is here to the office hours if you would like to join us this afternoon. We would be happy to talk to you further about the different questions that you have. The hours are from 3:30 to 4:30. The link to the office hours meeting is here on the screen and the slides, and it's also in your summer conference bulletin where you registered for this workshop as well. And then lastly, on the next slide, we ask you to please fill out an evaluation form for us. And this will help us to know, you know, what we did well and maybe what you're still interested in learning. So we really value your feedback and hope that you have the opportunity to complete this sometime today.
And again, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sticking around with us for a few extra minutes. Sorry, we went over. We do want to respect your time, and I know we kind of went fast through changes 3 and 4. So feel free, join us this afternoon, and we will talk a little more in depth specifically about changes 3 and 4, since we didn't get to finish. Well, we finished everything, but we didn't get to have the conversation like we did with changes 1 and 2. And thank you so much. We have enjoyed being with y'all. Yes, I will make sure as soon as we are done today, no worries, that you are able to make a copy of the slide deck. Thank y'all so much. It has been a blast with y'all.
Will the PD evaluation link be put in the chat box?
Yes, I
Lisa,
am.
Are you able to do that?
I am placing it in the chat right now.
Thank you.
Kristen, also everybody has the slide deck. If they use that bit.ly at the bottom of the screen, the bit.ly slash ELDNAV22, that is this presentation.
Yes, and we just have to click a box apparently, an extra box they have now added in Google where you can make a copy as well. Lisa DeWitt, I see you said, please explain again how we can document our participation in today's workshop. So the whole purpose of the interactive journal notebook is so that you're able to take notes and take all of your learning, and then you have it housed together from all the sessions you attend. The artifact piece for us is the journal questions, which are in that notebook. What will happen is I would give it at least a month. Teresa Parker will send you an email, and that will be your certificate of completion, your CEUs for this training, this session today, or the entire, and Marshall may be able to speak to this. I'm not sure if she'll get a individual certificate for each session attended, or if there's one for the entire. Okay.
No,
So
it should be
then what
for
you
each,
can,
for each session, because they should each have
okay.
different session names. We'll be downloading a list of participant list of those who, you know, of course, enrolled and participated today, and then she'll use that list to provide you with the certificate. And I want to thank Lisa
Awesome.
and Kristen for the great job they did today and all the work they put into creating this presentation for you all.
And then Lisa, also, yes, thank you, Marshall. You can turn that certificate and whatever else your district requires you to turn in to get CEUs within your district. But you have to actually go through your district, and like the way it's set up for us is it is considered an out of district workshop, professional development. So I go in and I have to provide my artifacts and all of that to receive the CEUs through my district. So you have to go through your district though to get those CEUs with the certificate, and you may or may not have to also include the artifacts. That's a district by district decision.
And please remember you can share those conference notebooks through GoOpen so that we can continue to learn and grow from each other throughout the year. So that's exciting.
All right. So again, we hope to see everybody this afternoon. Yes, I'm sorry, what?
I have a question. If I would like to come back this afternoon to hear more about changes 3 and 4, where's the link for that? Or do I need to register for that session? Because I didn't.
So you do not have to register for that. The link, if you have the slide deck, the link is on slide 51. I had the number and then forgot it. It is on slide 51. So you can either use that link, and it's also in your actual notebook, your interactive notebook as well.
It's also in the session descriptions that I just pasted the link to again. So once again, wherever you, whichever pathway you selected, you would have gone through and viewed that that portfolio or whatever it was that in essence that we created, right? And so that's at the bottom of each of the 4 pathways. There's the office hours link there as well.
Thank you so much.
All right. Again, thank y'all. We appreciate it. We've enjoyed this morning. Marshall, I think at this time we can stop the recording.
Yes, I'm going to end the recording now.
March.